Hey, what's up everybody? I needed to make a video real quick responding to this video by Bolo Da Producer. Disclaimer, I'm going to be skipping through this a lot. If you want to watch the whole video, I'll link the video in the description below. If you don't know who he is, he has some great insights and has a lot to teach, so check him out. Bolo is somebody who I respect a lot, so nothing I say is aimed at him or anything like that. I appreciate everything that he does for the community, the music community, and I don't just mean online. I mean, you could tell that he cares about what he does in the real world, and he's not just doing stuff for likes and views. He seems like a genuine dude. So I just want to talk about this idea of Pro Tools phasing out and only old people using Pro Tools, and the newer generation of young people only using FL. I want to react to this video. This is my first video reaction, so bear with me. Let's see what he has to say.
Listen, a shift is happening right here, right now. And if you are a studio owner or if you are an engineer, I highly suggest that you learn how to use FL Studio. Bolo! Now, as you guys know, I didn't really put any videos out this week because I've actually been in the studio working. And let me tell you what actually happened. Well, I was working with a new artist. He has a deal, and his A&R hooked him up with me, and he was like, yo, can we use the studio for him to record some of his songs? He's pretty much like a self-contained type of artist. He knows how to make his beats. He knows how to record himself. He knows how to do all of that stuff. So I was like, cool. So me knowing how a lot of these young artists are, I always ask this one question. What do they use to record? And he was like, hey, don't laugh because I know this is not what you use, but he uses FL Studio. I don't know why he uses it, but he uses it. So the kid comes in, the kid plugs up his laptop, and then he proceeds to make a beat on FL Studio. So I'm like, cool. You know, he's just making a beat on FL. It's cool. He was like, let me show you how to record on FL. He said, because all of my friends, we record on FL. It just seems better to do it that way because we could just buy the program and then we don't have to pay for any more updates or anything. Like, he was like, we don't really have that much money, you know, so what we do is we just all use FL Studio because we're always sending all of our files and stuff through FL Studio.
Okay, so far so good. It makes sense that younger artists are using FL Studio for producing and recording in. There's nothing wrong with that. That's amazing. You know, I wish back in the day when FL was Fruity Loops that I could have recorded vocals in there and done it all in one as well. But they didn't really have that capability just then. Let's keep going.
And it's like him and like 4 other guys who he works with. And then they just send all of their projects and stuff like that. And they all have like the same plugins and everything. So everything is pretty much contained with them. Like, he's the guy that makes the beats and records. His other homeboy goes through it and rearranges it. This guy, he acts as like the mixing guy. And then the other guy's like the finisher. So he can just like, he does like some stuff to kind of finish it up, and that's like their little network. And we sat there for 2 days and he recorded 6 songs in FL Studio. And then it kind of dawned on me, you know, while we was recording, because at first it was kind of weird, but then once I got to the concept of it, I was like, you know, this is actually kind of cool because I like the sound of FL. I think FL is probably has one of the best sounds of all the DAWs out there. I think FL is...
Prove it. I don't believe it. I'm into science, and I don't believe that this narrative that's been brought up that FL has some sort of like magical punch is a real thing. Show me the science. I want to see people start to think differently about audio. If you can't get your drums to hit right and it doesn't sound good because of the DAW that you're using, then you're not doing good enough. You have so much more to work on than worrying about which DAW you're in. If those drums are not snapping right, figure out why. If you like the way the FL is snapping, figure out why. To me, it seems like such a moot point to think about whether a drum is hitting hard enough, because you have so much more control over the sound than what DAW you're using. And best believe, if there was a way that one DAW would sounded so much better than the others, all the other DAWs would figure it out and do that same thing. If you don't have control over your mix, that's the problem. Think about that. If you don't have control over your mix, that's the fucking problem.
It's just, for some reason, the drums and stuff sound a little bit bigger and a little bit fatter. I don't know what they do, but it just has a better sound to it. And I'm be truthfully honest with you, I was kind of blown away on how easy it was for me to actually learn how to record in it and for me to learn how to move around in it. Now, I'm not like a certified pro in it. And then it kind of like dawned on me to ask him this question. I was like, man, how many of y'all are like recording in like Pro Tools, Logic or whatever? And he was like, none of my homies record in Pro Tools. Like, he's like, Pro Tools, that's for like y'all older guys. He said, like, I seen your video and everything on YouTube. Like, I know who you are. He like, I seen your video and stuff like that on YouTube because I like to watch tutorials and everything or whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. The young man is watching the brother or whatever. And he was like, it is true. He was like, man, he's like, y'all like are on the Pro Tools stuff, which is cool. That's for like the older generation. But the newer generation, we didn't grow up into that.
Okay. This is the point that I want to talk about. This is the narrative that I'm tired of. I'm 41 years old, and I started out using FL over 20 years ago. I was using FL at an insane level. FL is the reason why I'm able to do a lot of crazy stuff in the sessions the way that I do now. And I've always loved FL. And always will, honestly. Like, as an old head, to me, it's weird to hear younger people say that Pro Tools was the thing back in the day and not FL. I spent almost 10 years as a home studio. I would use FL for beats mostly. Like I said, you can't record. Back in the day, you couldn't record vocals in there. But best believe if you could, I would have. Back in those days, people told me, you're not a pro unless you use Pro Tools. And I had this mentality of, man, fuck Pro Tools. I don't need that shit. I'm doing so much crazy shit without that. And when I say crazy shit, I'm talking about like insane sound design techniques and in-depth sound manipulation in beats and doing just all sorts of wild shit. Mixing, editing, mastering, whatever. And I guarantee you, in these sessions that he's talking about, nothing crazy is going on. They're probably doing some beginner level shit in that program. I'm going to be real. I don't think they're doing anything extra crazy at all. And there's nothing wrong with that. Why would somebody who records themselves say that they have to use Pro Tools? To me, as a 16-year veteran in the game, using Pro Tools full time, I've made thousands and thousands of songs on Pro Tools. I've recorded, edited, mixed, mastered. I've earned a lot of money through Pro Tools. I've made thousands of beats with FL. And maybe not so much on Pro Tools, but I've made an insane amount of beats on Pro Tools as well. With my channel, I want to cut the bullshit. I want to tell you guys exactly how things work in the real world. And I'll tell you why we use Pro Tools over FL. It's because of the hardware. Pro Tools HD, if you don't know what it is, DSP cards process the audio in a way that you don't have to use just your CPU. So it keeps latency really low. It keeps things very stable at a lot of different levels. And what I mean by that is you could have one track or maxed out tracks in a session, and it should run the same at roughly the same CPU load with the same consistency. That's what professionals look for. I need tools that work a certain way in a lot of different scenarios. I'm not just recording rappers. I don't just need to throw auto-tune on a track and slap some vocals in there and call it a day. I'm recording obviously rap, hip hop, pop, EDM, sometimes Bollywood style stuff, audiobooks, sometimes commercial style stuff like TV ads and other things like that. As a professional studio, you want to be able to have a system that runs consistently in all of those scenarios. Can you do it with FL? Fuck yes, you could do it with FL. If I was at home and recorded myself my whole life and I didn't really need to go to a studio, I would just use FL. But if you're going to a professional studio, you don't want clicks and pops in your music. You want insanely low latency. Then Pro Tools is the way to go. Our buffer stays extremely low the whole time. Latency stays extremely low. And you're recording through an entire mix every single time. What I mean by that is your CPU is never lagging. You don't have to up the buffer rate. You don't have to change the latency. You don't have to turn on delay compensation. I hate delay compensation. I could have a maxed out session with plugins. Your vocals could be running through 7 different buses, and the latency would be so low you wouldn't notice in the headphones. A couple years later, you would come back to want to work on that song again or change something, which happens all the time in a professional setting, by the way. You just hop right in the booth. I don't have to change anything, and I could just re-record you on those parts. You get to hear the mix, the master in your headphones as you're recording. Now, computers have gotten a lot better over the years, and that doesn't seem like it's as big of a deal, but it's still a big deal. Every time we look to upgrade our equipment, we compare it against all the different variables. Because, man, would it be nice to not have to spend tens of thousands of dollars to get the Pro Tools HD setup. Keep in mind, Pro Tools HD is not the same Pro Tools that you get at your house. As an audio engineer who works every single day at the studio, full-time, charging a lot of money, I need things to work a certain way. And I'm sorry, but FL is not working that way. Is it an amazing program? Yes, I just told you that I've been using it for over 20 years, but I'm not using it in the studio. If somebody comes in with their laptop and wants to use FL because that's what they like doing, then that's amazing. They could go ahead and do that. There's no problem with that. And nobody should ever say that there is a problem with that. Will they have to deal with tons of latency and variable performance issues? Sure. But that doesn't mean that they can't record the songs, and obviously they're doing it. So who am I to say that that's the worst thing in the world? But the clients that I charge a lot of money for, I want them to have a certain experience that I set and meticulously set up. I'm doing something different than what Bolo's doing. And there's a lot of studios that do it like that too. I'm tired of the narrative that people push around like it's just some old head studio shit. I hated Pro Tools a long time ago before I ever started having to use it. I was like, damn, I gotta learn Pro Tools. That sucks. Fast forward to now, and I'm doing insane things with Pro Tools. Things I don't see tutorials on. Consistency of quality is the key for me. At our studio, Undercast Studios, we have 3 rooms. We have our A room and our B room, and then our C room. A and B, if you want to book that room, you have to book the engineer that is trained to work in those rooms. Not necessarily the most traditional way to do it, the way that we run it, but that's how our business runs. Studio C, on the other hand, we set it up to where you could bring in your laptop, plug it into the system, use our gear, go into the booth actually, which I think is amazing, and you could leave your laptop set up in the control room, go into the booth and remote control your laptop, see the screen inside the booth that's already set up. You get the quality room sound, the quality mic sound, and you don't get any fan noise or anything like that. I love that setup, especially for people that want to bring a laptop in and use FL or whatever program that they want. Now, I gotta say, we've seen the sessions that people bring in and the templates that they use and the mixing that they're using. It's different than what we do. I'll just say that. Is it perfect for them? Sure. That's great. But when you're coming to me and you're working with me, I've spent decades trying to perfect a sound and get to a certain quality level that you get immediately as you're recording. I want you to hear something mixed and mastered in your headphones as you're singing it. And then when you step out of the booth, you don't then have to send it to 12 different engineers to edit and mix it. I'm doing that stuff as we're recording. I'm recording. I've got Melodyne open. I'm melodining vocals that are running through auto-tune because it makes auto-tune sound so much better when you know how to manipulate the audio. If you have a singer coming in singing some R&B stuff, while they're recording their verse, on my second screen, we have 2 ultra-wide monitors in our studio. On the second screen, I have Melodyne opened up. I'm doing fine-tuned micro adjustments and stuff like that. So as soon as they step out of the booth, their song is as close to done as physically possible. If you can do that in other programs, that's absolutely amazing. I don't know if you can. I do this for a living, and I don't have time to just sit up and research every single different way to do it just for the sake of doing it. All I know is that Pro Tools HD specifically is able to handle these tasks on the regular basis all day, every single day. Now, let's talk about my setup here. I'm using a Behringer Euphoria. Okay. I've got the Rode NT1. It's a cheaper mic. Using the preamps on the Euphoria. I have FL. I've got Pro Tools that I'm paying for. I've dabbled in Studio One, a little bit in Ableton, not in Logic. I don't have any experience with that Logic yet. But even here, I notice that I love the editing on Pro Tools better than I do FL. And that's my personal preference. It's not because I'm an old head. It's because I've ran thousands of songs through these systems. If you want to record some guitar in FL and you want to slightly change the timing or manipulate it a certain way, with the wave file, it's so much easier in Pro Tools. At least for me. Now, if I were to record thousands of songs of guitar through FL, I would have a system set up that I would be insanely fast at it, because that's my goal and that's what I would aim for. And you want an engineer that could do those things. That's what I'm here for. That's what I look up to engineers that are able to do those things. So that's the level of quality that I want to operate on, and that's how we train our engineers when they come to the studio. Let's keep going.
And that's what I've been saying for a very long time, because I've been seeing over and over again when these kids come into the studio, a lot of these kids are recording their vocals and everything in FL Studio. Don't know what's going on, don't know how the network and everything is going on between these kids, but they're recording a lot of their songs in FL Studio. Now, am I saying that 70% of the songs that come into the studio are recording on FL? I'm not saying that. But I am seeing an uptick of artists that are coming to the studio over the past couple years that are recording on FL Studio and other programs other than Pro Tools. Am I saying that Pro Tools is done with? No. Am I saying that Logic is over with? Studio One, Cubase? Am I saying Reaper? Am I saying any one of those are done? I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that a lot of younger artists who are born past like 2005, they are now producing, recording, and mixing in FL Studio more than ever.
Again, this is because they allow the recording feature and are upgrading the tools to do so. So it makes sense. It's simple evolution. Why would you switch to a different program if you don't have to? There's nothing wrong with that, and it makes complete sense that in 2005, when you couldn't record vocals in FL, that nobody recorded vocals in an FL. And best believe, again, in those days, if I could have, I would have.
Now, like I said before, it's not like I'm just seeing 80%, 70, 60%. I'm seeing maybe like 30% now. I didn't used to see it at all back in the day, because most of the people that I was dealing with were 80s and 90s babies, okay? But these 2000s babies, especially these mid-2000 babies and late 2000s babies, are now doing everything in FL Studio. A lot of them not coming to the studio, they're doing everything at the house. Now, we can go with the whole debate and the whole argument of that's why music sucks right now, because people are not doing it the right way, they're not using the right tools, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. Well, guess what? Somebody likes it, and back in the 2000s, people didn't like, the older people didn't like the records then, and then the
Sorry to keep pausing it. This is not an old versus a new debate. This is literally the fact that people like to make stuff in their own convenience. I mean, it's inconvenient to go to the studio, and you have to know why you're going to a studio to go there. To me, it's about the engineer, because there's tons of people with Pro Tools HD setups that are worth tens of thousands of dollars in multi-million-dollar rooms that are creating absolute garbage quality music. Not just quality music, but the sound quality doesn't sound good. The engineer is responsible for that. But that's the reality. So when you have a bunch of kids playing around, making music in their apartment, then it makes sense that you're going to get varying levels of quality. And especially when the room's not treated, they can't hear it. So they're trying to mix something that is hard to mix because they can't really hear what it sounds like. By the way, again, not old versus new. I started out doing that. We were looking for apartments that had big walk-in closets so we could turn them into booths. We tried to make our own little makeshift booths and stuff like that, put up little foam on the wall and stuff like that. And by the way, we never used Pro Tools while recording in those eras because Pro Tools sucked if you were a home studio. I don't know if anybody remembers the Mbox or the little mixer thing. I forgot what that thing was called. And it was always a pain to use, at least for me. So we would always use other programs like what used to be called Sonar or Cubase. Again, this is not anything new. I think that when you're younger, you feel rebellious to say fuck Pro Tools because it's like, oh, you have to be a pro to use Pro Tools, blah, blah, blah. But no, this debate has been going on for a long time. A long time. In fact, it's such a cliche argument that it's not rebellious at all. In fact, it's the natural way that your mind will start thinking once you get more into this. You have to tell yourself, oh, I'm not going to use Pro Tools because you don't need that shit. Pro Tools sucks because of this, this, and this, and this. Well, you haven't used it. Maybe you worked on it for a couple times. Maybe you've had like a year working at a studio and you've used it. But no, you have not used it right. I guarantee you, if you think that Pro Tools sucks, it's because you don't know how to use it, period. You think it's clunky. Well, that's because you didn't learn how to use it properly. And if you're that one person that thinks that I'm wrong, I've trained so many engineers. I've interviewed so many engineers. And none of them, not a single one of them knew Pro Tools the way that we want you to know Pro Tools at our studio. Going to college to learn Pro Tools and they come out barely knowing shit about Pro Tools. I have a high standard for this stuff. And no matter what DAW that you're using, there's going to be a very small percentage of people that know their DAW well enough. Their engineering skills are going to be too low because they're not spending enough time learning the DAW and their workflow well enough. Period. And I hate to sound cocky. I'm definitely not cocky about this. I've just spent an insane amount of time working on this stuff. These types of debates seem beneath me. That sounds cocky. That sounds messed up, but guess why? It's because instead of being the online sphere of people talking shit about this or that, or this is better than that, or blah, 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 I'm sitting there with the program open, using it. In between sessions, I might have the program open to experiment with things. Something I very, very rarely see in the real world. A lot of people say they want to be engineers, but they're not putting even close to the amount of time learning their programs, learning their setup, learning how their mic reacts in different scenarios with different voices. Most people are way behind where they should be because they don't care enough. That's the problem. It's not what DAW is better than the next, which one sounds punchier. Come on, man. You can't get your drums to punch right? I want my channel to be a no bullshit channel. While everybody is arguing about this or that over there, I'm going to tell you the real shit that happens. As someone who's been full-time engineering for 16 years, someone who's trained engineers, thousands of hours of training engineers, bringing in applications, looking through the applications, hitting them up, talking to them about their experience levels, trying to help people learn and make better music. These type of arguments are terrible. These type of arguments don't help you become a better musician or make better music. This is all entertainment. And again, nothing against Bolo here. I'm not talking about Bolo at all or his experiences at all. I love what he does. I love his content. I'm talking to you. You are not as good as you could be. And you're not putting the amount of effort in that you should to be a professional. That's the problem. Let's keep going. I'm not even halfway through this fucking video yet. I'm fired up. okay?
Older generation didn't like the records from the 80s, and the older generation didn't like the records from the 70s. So at the end of the day, this is something that's going to be ongoing forever. It's just that older generations don't like what the new generation is doing. That's just what's going to happen. But what I'm saying from a technical side.
By the way, I usually don't listen to old music. The stuff that I grew up listening to, I only want to be inspired by new stuff. I want to hear something different. Can I relate to it the same way that I did when I was 20? No. But the good news is that I don't have to. I could still be inspired. I'm inspired every day by new music, new musicians, people trying different things. And I want that to continue. Anytime it feels stale, like it's doing the same thing too much, that's when I get annoyed. I want to hear something new, rebel against the last thing. The new trend always rebels against the last thing. So the new guys that are all up in their own shit thinking that the old heads don't know what they're talking about, you better move on with the times when the style of music that you're investing so heavily into becomes the old head music, which, by the way, is happening faster and faster over time. What you're making right now in a couple of years will be so old feeling, it'll be crazy. You better learn to adapt.
So these kids are now being able to record, produce, and mix inside of this program, and they don't know anything else. Because a lot of these kids didn't go to some of these schools like how they had it before. You got to remember.
And that's great. I really wish FL was able to record vocals back in the day. I would have stayed right in that same program, and I get it. I think that what people need to do is learn the DAW that they like, the one that resonates with them the most. It doesn't matter which one, and become an expert at that. Be better than everybody else at FL or Logic or Ableton. But if you were trying to apply for studios that are using Pro Tools and you don't think that you have to learn how to use Pro Tools, that's a problem. You better get real good and be real happy that you get the opportunity to work at a studio that's using Pro Tools. Not because it's Pro Tools, but because you want to make this your life. If you want to be serious about this, either you open your own studio using FL as the main thing, or you apply all of the techniques that you've learned in all these other DAWs and you learn how to do the same things in whatever DAW is the main DAW at that studio. Usually it's Pro Tools. Don't get so rigid in your way of thinking that you can't adapt to anything. Also, don't wait until you apply to then start learning how to use Pro Tools. If you think in 6 months to a year you are going to be applying for studio internships or to be an engineer at a studio like this and use their main system, then get ahead of it. That's what I did. Before I was hired at Undercast Studios, I made sure that I was up to date. I didn't want to step into that studio not knowing Pro Tools. And I didn't know it that well either, by the way. That's after preparing for the job. That's the job. Don't go into this world expecting to just learn on the job. You're going to lose clients. You're going to make the studio look bad. People are not going to want to come back to work with you. You're doing yourself a disservice. If you want to do this for real, know which path you're going to take and prepare for that. Don't get up in your fucking own ass thinking that just because you think that your DAW is better than this other DAW, that you can't learn in the real world how to do things the real way. That's the reality here. Our studio uses Pro Tools HD. Pro Tools HDX, I should say. And we have thousands and thousands of sessions. We just backed up terabytes and terabytes of just songs. And they're all Pro Tools sessions. Our studio sees engineers come and go. Maybe the engineer works for a couple years and then decides that they want to move on, or maybe they decide they don't want to be an engineer anymore. All of their clients that work with them now want to come back to us and continue working on those songs. They want a consistency of quality. They want to pick up where they left off. So it makes sense and it's more efficient as a business to use one system that runs all these things. As soon as that stops being the case, we will adapt. And we think about it and we talk about it all the time to make sure we are up to date with the most efficient practice for business.
A lot of these schools had different contracts with like Avid and stuff like that. And so now when you would go to certain schools, certain audio schools, you was basically being taught to use Pro Tools, because we all know that in, the early 2000s, Pro Tools was the best thing to do, especially if you had hardware and you were trying to do like this hybrid thing. It was pretty much the only thing you could probably use at that time was to, use Pro Tools because of the hardware connection capabilities. But as time went on and people started doing more stuff from the home, and home studios became this big thing, a lot of these younger generation kids were not on that. They were on strictly FL. I talked to kids even from, like from 2018. I'm like, yeah, I use Logic. You know what I'm saying? They're like, nah, man, we do everything in FL. If we make a beat in it, we might as well record in it and do everything in it. And
By the way, this is mostly the rap world we're talking about here. The rap world loves FL. For whatever reason, it just evolved to be that way. It's great for beats, so I guess that is what it is. But when you start getting into other genres, you're going to see that other genres also are very popular, and you'll start to see those DAWs come up again. But not in the rap world. It seems to be very heavy in the FL range, which is fine, again.
I'm like, okay, cool. And I thought it was kind of crazy then. I was like, why would you make the beat and record in FL? Why would you record in FL? Nobody records in FL, but apparently a lot of people did. And then now with the new capabilities of what FL Studio can do, that's what a lot of people are doing. You got to look at people like, what's his name? Plaque Boy Max, that's on Twitch. He's recording all of these top artists coming into his spot. He's recording them in FL Studio. He's recording them in FL. So now you have a whole generation, and think about this. You got all of these kids that watch this man make beats in FL and record people in FL, and you don't think that these kids ain't watching this and saying, hey, that's the program I need, because my favorite streamer right now that has a gazillion people watching the stream is using FL Studio. So we're going to record in FL Studio. And while he's recording in FL Studio, he's doing it effortlessly, and it looks easy to use.
Okay, so what this means to me is if you're starting a new business, you need to think about this. If your goal is to hire engineers that work on rap music all the time, and you can figure out the latency issues and create templates that are consistent, that are able to do all the things that you want to do with low latency, which, by the way, I have not seen, then sure, do that. Our business is about making a lot of songs, recording them, and releasing them potentially the same day, and getting them up to a certain quality level as quick as possible with the mix, to where they don't need to come back to get it mixed and mastered, which is a really hard thing to do, by the way. Really hard. And we constantly try to tweak it and improve it. So for our business specifically, it makes sense to have Pro Tools. HDX. It's really important. HDX is the way to go when you're talking about the difference here. If it's just the regular version of Pro Tools, the non-hardware version, then use whatever you want. It's all going to be the same problem anyways. But our business is built in this certain way, and we have an overkill system for this business for a lot of people that come through. And that's fine, because again, we have a lot of different things that we're trying to prepare for and be set up for. Not just recording rappers. If you're Plaque Boy Mac, sure, use FL. Like, it doesn't even matter. The point of his show is not to record at the highest level. It's to be an entertainment channel. He's trying to be entertaining, and he's doing a good job at that. Now, if you want to make a studio starting soon, then maybe thinking about FL being your main DAW would be an interesting concept. So that could be an option, but you better be good at setting things up in a way that is consistent. At least that's my opinion. Look at this commercial that just came up. The next generation is going to be using Suno. So when kids grow up using Suno, getting into the studio, should we abandon HDX because of that as well? Should we ban an FL because the new kids are using Suno? Suno is trying to make it a DAW, and once it does, it's going to be a game changer. Keep that in mind. Coming from an old head that's stuck in his old ways. My closing advice is, who cares what DAW you use? But, 1, become an expert at that DAW. Be good at it. Know your setup. I will only beef with you if you don't give a shit about your setup and you just do some half-ass shit. Number 2, if you want to work at a studio that uses Pro Tools, then prepare by learning Pro Tools. Don't expect getting a job making money alongside the people that have been doing it for years without knowing the tools that they know way better than you. If you want to get clients, you got to know the tools, no matter what tool that may be. My name's Randy. I'm tired of ranting. I'll talk to you later.